An 18-foot coffin. That is what Ron Wyatt claimed was pulled from the mountains of Turkey. Inside, the remains of a giant. Not a myth, not a legend, a real human being of impossible size. Mainstream science refused to acknowledge it. Museums allegedly locked it away from public view. Wyatt believed this was only part of a larger discovery, one that pointed to Noah's Ark itself. He dedicated his final years to uncovering the truth. What he found challenged everything modern history teaches about our ancient past. But to understand what Wyatt discovered, we must first return to the mountain where it all began. Mount Ararat rises nearly 17,000 feet above eastern Turkey. Snow covers its peak year-round. Clouds wrap around its slopes like a veil hiding something beneath. For thousands of years, people have believed this mountain holds a secret. Ancient writings speak of a great flood that destroyed the world. Only one family survived. They floated for months inside a massive wooden vessel. When the waters finally dropped, that vessel came to rest on a mountain. Many believe that mountain was Ararat. Local villages have passed down stories for generations. Farmers claim the soil near certain areas feels different. Animals refuse to graze there. Shepherds avoid one particular formation on the mountainside. They call it the place of the ship. Scientists have dismissed these stories as folklore. Governments have restricted access to the region. Yet the stories never stopped. And in the 1970s, one man decided to investigate for himself. He was not a trained archaeologist. He was not backed by any university. But what he lacked in credentials, he made up for in determination. Ron Wyatt was a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee. He had no archaeology degree, no funding from major institutions. What he had was faith and an obsession with biblical history. While most people read scripture as spiritual text, Wyatt read it as a map. He believed the Bible described real places, real events, real objects waiting to be found. In 1977, Wyatt saw a magazine photograph that changed his life. It showed a strange boat-shaped formation in the mountains of Turkey. The image had been captured during an aerial survey years earlier. Military pilots had noticed the outline by accident. The shape was too perfect to ignore, too symmetrical to be random rock. Experts quickly dismissed it as a natural formation. Geological forces could create such shapes, they said. Nothing to investigate further. Case closed. But Wyatt disagreed. He studied the photograph for months. He measured the dimensions. He compared them to the biblical description of Noah's Ark. The numbers matched almost exactly. Wyatt knew he had to see this formation with his own eyes, so he booked a flight to Turkey. The site was called Durupinar. It sat on a mountainside about 15 miles from the peak of Ararat. When Wyatt first arrived, he understood why locals avoided the area. The formation looked unnatural. It stretched roughly 538 feet in length. The sides curved upward like the hull of a massive ship, pointed at one end, rounded at the other. Wyatt walked the perimeter slowly. He noticed something strange. The soil composition changed dramatically at the edges of the formation. Inside the shape, the ground felt different underfoot, harder, more compact, as if something solid lay beneath. He returned multiple times over the following years. Each visit revealed new details. He found strange stones nearby with holes drilled through them. They resembled ancient anchor stones used to stabilize ships. Some weighed several tons. Who would carve such massive anchors, and why leave them scattered on a remote mountainside? Turkish authorities eventually took interest. They sent their own scientists to examine the site. Initial surveys were inconclusive. Some researchers saw potential evidence of a man-made structure. Others saw only rock and sediment. The debate grew heated. Then something happened that no one expected. The mountain itself intervened. In 1978, a powerful earthquake shook the region. When Wyatt returned, the formation had completely changed. The earthquake measured 6.9 on the Richter scale. It devastated nearby villages. Thousands lost their homes. But on the mountainside, something remarkable occurred. The ground around the Durupinar formation had cracked wide open. Wyatt arrived as soon as travel was permitted. What he saw stopped him cold. Deep fissures now ran along the entire length of the structure. The volcanic soil had split apart, and beneath that soil was something that should not have been there. Running parallel inside the formation were long, evenly spaced shapes. They curved perfectly with the outline of the structure. They looked exactly like the ribs of a ship. Not random geological patterns, not twisted roots or mineral deposits. Ribs, dozens of them, spaced with precision. Wyatt dropped to his knees. He had studied this site for years. He had believed something was buried here, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. The earthquake had done what no excavation permit would allow. It had peeled back the mountain's skin. Wyatt began documenting everything. He photographed the rib-like formations from every angle. He collected soil samples. He measured distances between each shape. But the ribs were only the beginning. What lay deeper inside the structure would prove far more disturbing. Turkish authorities refused to allow excavation. The site was too culturally sensitive. Digging could cause international controversy. So Wyatt found another way to see beneath the surface. He brought ground-penetrating radar. The technology sends signals deep into the earth. Those signals bounce back differently depending on what lies below. Solid rock returns one pattern, empty space returns another, metal returns something else entirely. Wyatt and his team scanned the entire formation systematically. The results were stunning. Beneath the surface were distinct internal voids, not random pockets of air, organized chambers. Long corridors ran the length of the structure. Room-like spaces appeared at regular intervals. Vertical supports rose from a lower level to an upper level. The pattern matched exactly what one would expect from a multi-story vessel, just as Genesis described. 3 decks, multiple compartments, internal bracing to support massive weight. But one reading troubled Wyatt deeply. In certain areas, the radar detected dense organic deposits. Analysis suggested fossilized animal waste, not from any creature native to that region, waste from animals that had no business being on a Turkish mountainside. If animals had once lived inside this structure, who brought them there? And what else might remain preserved within? According to accounts from those close to Wyatt, the discoveries did not stop at the formation itself. During his investigations in the region, Wyatt reportedly learned of another find, one that had been quietly removed years earlier. A massive stone sarcophagus, a coffin carved from solid rock. Its length measured nearly 18 feet. The implications were staggering. Modern humans average between 5 and 6 feet tall. A coffin of that size would hold someone 3 times larger, someone of impossible proportions, a giant. Wyatt believed this sarcophagus belonged to a member of Noah's family, perhaps Noah's wife herself. The Bible speaks of people living for hundreds of years before the flood. Genesis mentions mighty beings who walked the earth in those ancient days, beings of great size and strength. Mainstream science teaches that such giants never existed. Human biology does not allow for such growth. Yet here was physical evidence suggesting otherwise. According to Wyatt's sources, the sarcophagus was transported to a museum archive in Ankara. It was placed in storage, away from researchers, away from cameras, away from the public. No official documentation has surfaced. No photographs have been released. The museum has never confirmed or denied the claim. Why would such a discovery be hidden unless someone feared what its existence would prove? Wyatt saw his discoveries as more than archaeology. He saw them as confirmation of Scripture. The Bible describes the world before the flood in troubling detail. Genesis 6:11 says the earth was corrupt and filled with violence. Humanity had turned completely away from God. only Noah remained faithful. God gave Noah precise instructions: build an ark, specific dimensions, specific materials, gather animals of every kind. A flood would come to cleanse the earth. The ark was not a cute boat from children's books. It was a massive survival vessel. According to Genesis, it measured 300 cubits long. That converts to roughly 510 to 538 feet, almost exactly the length of the Durupinar formation. Wyatt believed God had preserved this evidence for a reason. Jesus himself warned that history would repeat. Matthew 24:37 states clearly, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." The ark was not just ancient history, it was a message, a warning meant for future generations, a warning that someone apparently wanted to keep silent. Ron Wyatt faced resistance at every turn. Mainstream archaeologists dismissed his findings. Scientific journals refused to publish his research. Universities would not examine his samples. The formation was labeled a natural geological feature. Case closed, move along. But Wyatt noticed something troubling. Despite claiming the site held nothing of interest, authorities never allowed proper excavation. If it was just rock, why forbid digging? If there was nothing to find, why station guards nearby? The Turkish government declared the area protected. International researchers were denied access. Permits were rejected without explanation. The mountain remained sealed. Wyatt reportedly told close associates that powerful forces wanted this discovery buried, not because it disproved the Bible, but because it confirmed it. Confirmation would raise uncomfortable questions, questions about giants, questions about judgment, questions about what humanity had become. Before his death in 1999, Wyatt allegedly warned that the full truth remained hidden. He had seen things he could not share publicly, evidence too explosive to release. He took those secrets to his grave, but the mountain still stands. Today, Mount Ararat remains restricted. The Durupinar formation sits untouched beneath volcanic soil. No major excavation has ever been permitted. Radar data remains disputed. The sarcophagus has never been publicly displayed. Governments say there is nothing to see. Scientists say the case is closed. Yet researchers still quietly travel to that remote mountainside. They still take photographs. They still ask questions. What if Ron Wyatt was right? What if the Ark survived for a reason? Not as a relic of the past, but as a warning for the present. The Bible describes a world so corrupt that God chose to start over. Only one man and his family were spared. Jesus said those days would come again. A generation that ignored every warning, that dismissed every sign, that carried on as if judgment would never arrive. The mountain holds its secrets still, buried beneath ice and stone, waiting. Perhaps the real question is not whether the Ark exists. Perhaps the question is whether we are ready to face what its existence means.